Perfect. So now you have Argo CD UI. Hello all, welcome back to my channel. This is GK. So in this video, we are going to discuss about how to set up Argo CD on GKE Private Cluster. As you all know, Argo CD is the most famous GitOps tool for Kubernetes. And this is part of GK with GK series. If you want to watch all the videos in this series, please click on the playlist. So here we're going to discuss the first item and the most important item on how to install Argo on GKE Private Cluster. The reason why we're going to install on private cluster is because obviously you want to access your Argo on a private IP address. You don't want to expose that to internet. The second, I'm going to show you how to expose the service and then access the service from your browser via an IAP tunnel. So without further ado, let's get into the demo. So before we install Argo, I highly recommend watching my previous video on GKE Private Cluster, how to create a cluster and how to add your public IP address as an authorized IP address to the control plane of your private cluster so that you can access the private cluster from the command line. So once you have the cluster GKE cluster created, which is a private cluster, and then you have done all the authorization part where you can access your cluster from your command line, just to make sure that you are able to access, click on connect here, which I have clearly shown in my previous video, and then click on your gcloud utility, command line interface, and from here you can try kubectl get nodes. Now we're just making sure that it is able to hit the control plane and get all this information from the private cluster. Alright, so now we have a 3-node cluster and I'm able to get all the node information. Now we have to install the Argo CD. So before I do that, one of the most important thing that you want to make sure in a GKE private cluster is that your pods are able to access internet. So by default, whenever you create a GKE private cluster, your nodes will not have access to the internet. But when we are installing an application or when we are installing Argo CD, it has to pull a container image from internet. So previously, the way people used to do is they used to create a bastion host and then they used to create these jump servers to create a tunnel and do all this natting manually. But now Google has made it much easier through cloud router. So what we have to do right now is create that NAT. So I have the commands here. I'm going to paste that in the description as well. So the first command is to create the nat-router. And I am able to execute these commands because I have permission since I'm the owner of this project. I'm assuming that you're also owner of your project, or you have necessary IAM permissions to execute this. If you do not have, please go back to the Google document where it will show you clearly what permissions that are required for you to create this NAT router. The first one is done successfully. Now we are going to create the nat-config. So it might take few seconds for this to be done. All right, good. So now if you want to verify from the node, you can also SSH to one of these nodes and just check curl google.com or curl some other external website to check whether you're able to access that. So I'm confident that it will work. So moving on, I'm going to go to the Argo CD website. So I already have created the namespace, but I'll just check again. Create namespace, Argo CD. It's always recommended to create a namespace and install Argo on that namespace. Okay, so that is done. So now we're going to directly install the Argo CD on that Argo CD namespace. Okay, so now let's go back to the Kubernetes cluster. It might take few minutes or seconds to get all the pods up and running. And you can also check in the workloads the status of all the services. All right, perfect. Now we have the services and we are good with the Argo setup. Now next what we have to do is we have to access the Argo console. So for that to work, so the Argo CD service is having the cluster IP, and obviously with cluster IP you cannot access that from your browser. Now what we should do is expose the service as a NodePort and change this from cluster IP to NodePort as type. So for that, the command is here. All right, so the Argo CD server is patched. So basically, first time I got this issue because I haven't passed -n the namespace, and it took the default namespace. Okay, now if you go back to the services in Ingress, you will see the Argo CD has a NodePort. Now if you click on this one, click on the service, you will see the IP address, rather the port, which is 32,147. And using this port, we're going to access the node, which is one of the node where you have the Argo CD running. So basically what we have to do is we have to go to the compute engine and select one of the node. Any node is fine, and there is no external IP address, and that's why we have to access this node by using a tunneling. And previously we used to use again bash and host and all those things, and thanks to Google with IAP you don't have to do that. There's a very simple command where you're gonna create a firewall rule to allow IAP for that specific port. So the port here is 32147. Just copy this one, and I'm gonna give this command to you in the description. So this is the command. So it's gonna create a firewall rule to create allow ingress from IAP, which is the name, and then the direction is ingress, meaning from your computer through the source IP address, through the source range, it's going to create a tunnel, and then the TCP is 32147. So if you want to do SSH, you can do 22 port here. You can give 22 port here. So copy this command. Might have done this before. If I have done this, it would throw me an error. Okay, so the firewall rule already exists for this port, so we don't have to do anything. So now the most important command is to start the IAP tunnel. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the tunnel where we're going to talk to the remote port, which is 32147, and then start, or rather open a port in my local. It can be 8080 or it can be port of your choice, any open port of your choice on your local Windows or Mac or Linux laptop. So for this, what I have to do is, since I'm running on an Ubuntu, I'm not exposing or I'm not running this tunnel from my Windows command shell. So I'm running inside an Ubuntu on top of my Windows. So what I have to do is, rather than using a local host, I have to copy this IP address and paste it here. I hope it is clear for you all, because if you are running this from your Windows directly, you can just use localhost, or from your Mac, you can just use localhost. Now, because I'm running from an Ubuntu, I'm going to use that specific IP address because that is what I'm going to access in my browser. So copy this, and so we will know if the tunnel is actually working, and if it is working, then you will see that it is listening on 8085 port. So now go back to your browser, and if everything works fine, you should, I'm sorry, 19, yeah, you should see your Argo CD UI opening here. Perfect. So now you have Argo CD UI, and now I'm going to type admin. Again, go back to the command and run it here. Okay, I got the password. Copy this, paste it here. That's it. So now we are in the Argo CD, and we are accessing Argo CD in a very secure way by running Argo CD in a GKE Private Cluster and accessing that without opening it to any internet or without opening it for anybody to access from your GKE Private Cluster. So I hope this video is super helpful. So do try this at home and make sure you try it out only on the private cluster. That way you will cover a lot of concepts from IAP to creation of firewalls, and then port forwarding, and all these cool concepts that are going to be very useful whenever you join a company. I'm going to put the agenda and the timestamps in the description. That way you can switch around from each topic. So let me know in the comment section if you have any questions on this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Take care. Bye.